Welcome back to the Talk Shop in Studio 255 at the Laramie Plains Civic Center. Today's in-studio guest, Gabe Saint from the University of Wyoming campus and one of over 200 student-registered organizations at the University of Wyoming, Turning Point USA, the Wyoming chapter. Welcome, Gabe Saint.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Good to be here.
You have an exciting schedule of speakers on the University of Wyoming campus that's sponsored, affiliated with Turning Point USA Wyoming chapter. And April is a massive month for Turning Point.
Yeah. So we've already hosted a bunch of really cool speakers. On earlier in March, we hosted former State Representative Ben Hornock. He came and talked about how it's up to Gen Z to kind of push back on some of the areas in politics that former generations have lost ground on. So we talked about like DEI. Some of this gender stuff. We talked about like spending in Wyoming. We spend almost as much per capita in the state of Wyoming as California does, and so that's kind of a problem. Those are the things we talked about. Last week we hosted a panel talking about why Wyoming is such a great place to live and raise families and start businesses. I hosted a good friend of mine, and a former state representative and the director of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, and it was really, really awesome. It was a good discussion. And then this Thursday, we have CEO and president of Wyoming Family Alliance, Nathan Winters. He's going to come talk about how Scotch-Irish people during the colonial times influenced American notions of liberty and freedom. So he's going to talk about that, kind of how like Presbyterians.
What's the date on that, Gabe?
Today, April 3rd.
All right, tonight.
7 o'clock. You can.
Is that in the Wyoming Union?
Yep, Wyoming Union. You can see us in. You can find us
open to the public.
Open to the public. Yeah. Anybody can come engage in good discourse, civil discourse. Bring questions. Bring a notepad for notes. And then on April 17th, we're bringing former Wyoming Secretary of State, former Speaker of the Wyoming House of Representatives, Ed Buchanan. I'm super excited about that. He's going to come talk about how to be a statesman, reach across the aisle, that kind of thing, which I think would be good, seeing some of the stuff that's been happening, particularly in this county of late. And then on April 24th, our big speaker, President and CEO of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, he's going to come talk to students and the general public. Everybody's welcome. And then have a Q&A after, and we're expecting a lot of people for that one.
I've heard Kirk speak previously, and if you haven't caught him, he's available with much footage on YouTube and other social media formats. But there's no question that people, they like to challenge Kirk, and he seems to handle it quite solid. What's your vantage point on Charlie Kirk coming to the University of Wyoming and our population, our community interests, and their challenges that they might pose for Charlie Kirk? Are they different than anywhere else in America?
No, I think that Charlie likes to pick places like Laramie where it's pretty diverse in its political views. I think he likes that challenge. He likes debate. He likes discourse. And so I would welcome people to bring their questions, bring their ideas, and talk to him about it. He'll talk to him about it. Do what Laramie is usually pretty good at in being respectful in our discourse and our dialogue. And if you do that, he'll engage with you as long as you want. He's a professional, and I think that he'll bring ideas that will surprise you. I think sometimes the clips aren't very honest of like what lots of people.
They're taken out of context here and there, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Sure.
And Charlie's one of my heroes. I've learned a lot from him, how to engage with people that disagree with you, and so I would just encourage people that disagree to come. Where
did you first meet Kirk yourself?
I met him. I first took over the chapter at UW the spring semester, my freshman year, and then I met him the fall semester after that. He came to a fundraiser in Jackson, Wyoming, and I went up there, and we got to sit down with him and just kind of like talk to him about free speech at UW and how we were working with different partners and stakeholders on that. And I was just asking him like various ways to be a good leader for the chapter. And so I met him there, and I haven't really seen him since. I've seen him speak at different conferences that I've gone to, like leadership conferences and the big Turning Point USA conferences. But I haven't communicated with him since since then, and until last December when I won the Student Patriot of the Year award at the AmFest convention in Phoenix. And then he said he was going to come to Laramie and hang out with us and talk to the public.
What are your greatest concerns for America and Wyoming specifically right now in our country?
I think our three biggest concerns are in areas of immigration, trade, and like wars and foreign policy. I think those are three things that we can broadly ascribe to be the biggest issues for America. I like to think about John Jay and Federalist too. That and you see guys like Matt Walsh and Charlie Kirk and Michael Knowles and all these big conservative commentators really starting to talk about this now. Is that can America really be America if the people that are of founding stock just like aren't in the public sphere anymore and aren't valued in the public discourse and in government? And I know, like Charlie Kirk was asked, if America was 90% of some other nationality, would it still be America? No, of course it wouldn't be America. America was founded by distinct people with distinct values. They had a shared religion. They had all these different shared traits and identity that made this country what it is, the freedoms that we all enjoy. And so I think like this immigration poses a big issue, is that if you are substituting the Native American population, as in people that were born in America, do you really have a nation anymore? Because what's a nation? It's shared bonds of loyalty between groups of people. And if those people, if a lot of the people aren't of stock of this country, you lose the country. And then trade, I think, is another big issue. When your economy is not backed by hard capital like manufacturing and industry, you kind of don't have any way to sustain your economy when crisis is hit. Like if you remember COVID, we didn't have manufacturing for things like respirators. And if World War III were to happen tomorrow, we'd be cooked because we don't have the necessary chip manufacturing, semiconductor manufacturing. And that's why we were a protectionist economy for a long time, because we wanted to keep necessary products here in America. Like during World War I and World War II, vehicles were the type of manufacturing we needed to win those wars. And we needed that kind of manufacturing. Same thing with like airplanes and shipyards. So I think Trump's doing a great thing with like the shipyards. And I know we just got a huge contract to build ships in Arizona. And then foreign wars. We got to stop in the foreign intervention. I think the founding fathers are rolling over in their graves with all these wars we engage in on the other side of the globe. If we're going to engage in any foreign intervention, any policing, it has to be in this side of the world: North America, Central America, South America. That's where most of our trade is. That's where we should be. I don't think we should be protecting the Suez Canal. Only 3% of our trade goes through there. I know Vice President J.D. Vance kind of mentioned that in that leaked Signal chat that went viral last week. I agree with that. So those are the three big issues I think are facing America.
Recently on the University of Wyoming campus, Alan K. Simpson was honored in a memorial celebration for his life and career, support of Wyoming, his advocacy for Wyoming in the U.S. Senate, and any comments with respect to that statesman? And you mentioned immigration, and Alan Simpson was a big advocate for consensus building in regards to immigration. And I'm just curious if you have a vantage point you'd like to share with us on that topic.
Yeah, I think everybody at the university was real sad. I know a lot of student orgs. We all fight over Simpson's Plaza, the little plaza out by Prexy's, that's dedicated to him because it's the best place to table on campus. So I'm in ASUW. We are going to vote on a resolution this next Tuesday, and I sponsored it honoring his service to the state of Wyoming and America. So I think everybody was very bummed. He's done a lot for UW. He was always an advocate for UW. And yeah, consensus building. When it comes to issues like things like immigration and all these different issues I spoke of, you do need consensus. And I think there is growing consensus, particularly with immigration. I think that's why a lot of people voted for Trump. I mean, when your town looks one way, 10 years ago, and it's just like you don't even
resemble that?
Yeah, it doesn't resemble your hometown at all. I think people are like, huh. I mean, I don't think Americans are prejudiced at all, against immigrants, but there is something to say about, and I think actually college kids are getting, they're more afraid of legal immigration And there's kind of been a growing trend against with like computer science types. And I think that I can't remember what department just proposed a rule to, like, you basically, if you are here on a green card getting a degree in some kind of tech job, you basically have a guaranteed job with your green card to get any tech job you want in America. And I have a lot of friends who have graduated with like computer science degrees, which are supposed to be some of the most valued degrees on the market, who can't find jobs. I mean, one of my buddies, he out of graduation with a computer science degree, getting paid $35,000 to like code slot machines, and like it's just in Georgia, and it's just I don't know why these college kids with these really good degrees can't find jobs, but like guys like these big tech bros are importing cheap labor because they don't want to hire American. And so I think legal immigration with educated people is becoming a huge contentious issue. And then among non-educated people that haven't gone to college, it's illegal immigration that they're concerned about, because those are they have some more lower class jobs, the more blue collar jobs. So I think there is growing consensus, and we need to address it. But also, if Americans really want to stop this, we got to start having more babies. Young people need to get married and start having more babies, because we don't want to end up like Japan, where they're about to have a population collapse.
The population race, huh?
Yeah.
So individually, and perhaps as a student leader yourself, what do you point to show your efforts to build consensus in our community?
Yeah, well, that's why I host a lot of these events, and we really try to get people that are opposed to our events to come and just listen to us. At our weekly meetings that we have some pretty controversial discussions. We'll have pretty liberal and progressive people that come, and we really try to, instead of just fight with them, show them what we believe and try to find that little bit of common ground and find issues that we do agree about. I think it's really interesting with some more progressive types, this free trade consensus that America's had for like the last 70, 80 years is a point where conservatives like me and some progressives kind of agree on. I don't think free trade is best for America. We need to have pragmatic trade. We need to use a little bit of common sense when we're making trade deals with other people. If China's putting a 70% tariff on all our exports to them, and we're not putting any tariffs on them, that just makes no sense. We're not protecting American workers. And I think you kind of saw that, back right after the election, when Bernie Sanders was like, the Democrat Party has lost, the working class. And MAGA has won the working class, because we're acknowledging the working class's problems when it comes to areas of trade and industry and manufacturing. So I think that's like one area where we have consensus. And, for years I've been talking about civil discourse and free speech. I really do think that's the main avenue in getting people sitting in the same room and talking to each other, and continually pushing kind of the Christian viewpoint that all people are made in the image of God and have eternal worth and dignity. And that's something, us conservatives who are generally Christian need to remember when we're talking to people who don't agree with us and don't like the faith or our politics, is that doesn't matter. They're still human beings, and our job is to talk to them about our ideas, our beliefs, and win hearts and minds, and not just combat to combat. We're here to be stewards of our home and country, just like God commanded the Israelites when they got exiled to Babylon. He's like, I know it sucks you guys went to Babylon, but now you guys got to be stewards of the place I have sent you. And that's how we kind of have this mentality here, and at UW and Wyoming and America, we should be caretakers. We should be humble servants to our people. So that's how I approach that.
At the University of Wyoming, I don't recall a student organization summit that was ever conducted while I was attending the University of Wyoming, both in undergrad or graduate programs. Do you think that there'd be help in building consensus, in finding common ground, if such an event was brought to unite so many student organizations, just as a starting point? Is that something that you see that might be fruitful on the campus in Laramie?
I think, it probably would be fruitful. I think it's always tough with like all the little political clubs, because there's a number of them, getting them in the same room, because most of them are very small. I think that would be helpful, just kind of getting us all in the same room, maybe like a round table style, just talking about different issues that UW is facing in particular.
A panel. There you go.
Yeah,
A panel
I think
discussion.
that would be great if somebody would host that. I don't think if Turning Point hosted that some of
Turnout would be low.
yeah, if for
Right.
a panel.
There you go.
Because it'd probably just be like conservatives and libertarians, but
Much of life is about showing up, isn't it?
it is.
And who makes the invitation and who accepts the invitations. I know in the 2022 and 2024 election cycles, I extended invitations to every single candidate for political office. Less than half show up.
Yeah, and we see that with events too. I think right now we're kind of seeing the cycle in people who show up. I think conservatives, now that the Trump administration is in, our state legislature rocked it out, conservative wise. I think conservatives, you're kind of starting to see that apathy a little bit. Just like how I think a lot of left wing people on campus were pretty apathetic when Joe Biden was in office. I think you kind of starting to see that cycle. So I would just encourage conservatives and people on the left alike to be active in discourse and in showing up to things, being respectful, engaging in that civil discourse, not to attack people just to attack people because they're opposed to you, but to engage them in a manner that shows that you care about our people as a collective, not just some ideology.
The last question comes from our audience, and this one, Gabe, is why do you think that United States fuel prices at the pump have not come down in the first 100 days of the President Trump administration?
Yeah, I'd have to look into that, but I don't think our domestic oil production has ramped up very much at all. I was actually just talking to a lady who works in the oil fields, and here particularly in Wyoming, our domestic oil has not ramped up at all. I think we're still importing a lot of oil. There in various areas of the country too. There's still pretty high taxes at the pump, but I don't think that the Trump administration, like the first time, is really engaged on the energy front yet. I think he's been very much focused on trade, especially like this tariff stuff, getting more reciprocal relationships with our trade partners. And I don't think that we've really seen him. We've seen him make some actions on coal, which I think is interesting. But we haven't really seen that with natural gas and oil yet. So I think that's just something to wait. And if it doesn't, I think people ought to hold the president accountable because that was one of the things he promised. And I think I encourage the base and leftists alike to
hold them accountable.
Hold them
right?
accountable. I absolutely believe in that.
For sure. Grocery prices also on the horizon. Let's hope that we see some
Yeah.
relief to all citizens in America with respect to grocery prices as well.
I would encourage people, like with a lot of these tariffs coming in, to expect a little bit of a price increase. You're going to have that no matter what with tariffs. But the point of the tariffs is to make it more stable for the long term. We should be reliant on ourselves for especially things like food and like these necessary resources like chips and semiconductors and electric things that we need to use to build electric cars and stuff. So I would just encourage people to think in the long term about their children. Like I'm thinking about my generation because the free trade has not done well for my generation. So I hope in 2 generations maybe America can be a little bit more independent and more sovereign, that our people would have more of a choice.
Are student tickets still available to see Charlie Kirk at
Yes.
the University of Wyoming on April 24th?
Yes, there's still student tickets. If you're a student, I encourage you to go. Come. There's going to be lots of cool stuff. We'll have a lot of stuff to give you guys. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Together We Can, April 11th, will bring Lieutenant Colonel Alan West as a special guest, 6 p.m. at the Laramie Elks Lodge, 582 103 South 2nd Street, right here in Laramie, Wyoming. The ticket includes dinner, door prizes, silent auction, and keynote speech from Alan West, 22-year career veteran of the Army branch of service in America. Together We Can accomplish so many things. And if somebody wants to get involved with Turning Point as a student in Laramie, Wyoming, how do they do that, Gabe?
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. DM us. You can also go to the Student Org's website and find our little portal for Turning Point and just push kind of the join button, and then we'll reach out to you.
Gabe Saint from the University of Wyoming campus, Turning Point USA, Wyoming chapter.
Thank you much.